Next guest is a big-time author, New York Times best-selling author of some great books, including In the Heart of the Sea. He is a well-respected historian. He wrote The Mayflower, which, by the way, is a great book. And his movies are now big Hollywood blockbusters that were turned into movies courtesy of Ron Howard. But there was a time when he was just a stay-at-home dad floundering. His new book, his memoir is called Second Wind, and it's getting a second publishing, originally published in 1999. Nathaniel Philbrick, welcome back to the Big 550 KTRS.
Oh, it's great to be with you.
Okay, so tell us about the book. So this was originally published, it was a small run in 1999. What happened?
Yeah, and the publisher went bankrupt, and I ended up actually purchasing the books. They were sold through a small press on Nantucket. We ran out of books, and Penguin voiced an interest in coming out with a new edition. And so that this is a reissue of a book that describes a pivotal year in my life back in 92, 93, almost 25 years ago, when I discovered my voice as a historian and launched a comeback as a sunfish racer.
So now this was before all of your success with all of these other books.
Absolutely. I was a freelance sailing journalist and a stay-at-home dad. And it's, if you've been a stay-at-home with your kids, you lose 25 IQ points when it comes to doing anything outside the home. And my career, I didn't really know where my career was going. And my son got into first grade, so I had till 2:30 in the afternoon. I got a contract to write my first work of history away offshore, a history of the island. And I realized if I needed to get back on the water. I needed to start sailing again. And so, this was way before In the Heart of the Sea, but it's really where I found my voice and set me on the path I've been following ever since.
What is sunfish sailing?
Well, a sunfish is the VW bug of sailboats. It's basically an ironing board 13 and a half feet long with a well for your feet. It weighs about 140 pounds, has a latine sail, which is basically a triangle. You can fit 1 to 7 people on a sunfish. When you race it, it's one person per boat. They were designed in the 50s. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of them out there. They're very, you can buy a used one for hundreds of dollars, and they're fast. You can plane down the waves in them in a good breeze. They're just a wonderful boat that is accessible to just about anyone, and anybody of any size can sail it. I just think they're the greatest way to start sailing and to race competitively.
You were living on Nantucket Island. You had the life of Riley. Why couldn't you be inspired to write wonderful sea stories until you went back to the water?
Well, and looking back, I realized, all my books since then have the water in them. Even my book about Custer and the Little Bighorn begins with a riverboat. For me, the way into American history involves water of some kind. And I think it was inevitable that if I was going to find my way into the archives, find my way into history, I had to get myself back on the water. And that's really the story that's told with Second Wind. It was kind of a whirlwind year in which, I found myself figuring out how to write as a historian and got back out there sailing my sunfish on the ponds of Nantucket.
The book is called Second Wind, a sunfish sailor, an island, and the voyage that brought a family together. Was it true that your kids said, "Dad, get a life," and that was sort of the impetus to sort of get back on the water?
Absolutely. I mean, I had hit rock bottom. Here I was at home with the kids, and it was a weekday afternoon, and I was watching the America's Cup on ESPN. And the kids wanted to watch the Mickey Mouse Club, and I refused to turn over the clicker. And my daughter, my 10-year-old daughter, looked at me in disgust and said, "Dad, get a life." And she and her younger brother stormed out and were playing Frisbee in the back. And it was then I realized, oh, my gosh, I do have to get a life. And we then went to the side of the house where my old sunfish was leaning and took a look at it, and my daughter said, "Well, why don't you sail it?" And then I said, maybe that's how I get a life. And so I really owe it all to my kids.
Nathaniel Philbrick, the book is called Second Wind. What is it about the water? I'm with you. I can sit on the ocean and just watch the world go by. You're on a boat. I'm not much of a boater, but just being by the water makes me feel good. What is it?
Yeah, well, I think the water is kind of our last unchained piece of nature. The water, it's where the wind interacts with the water. It's beyond our control. When I'm in a sailboat, I've left everything in my conscious brain behind. I'm involved in navigating this little boat through the wavelets, the wind always shifting. It's wonderful. It plugs me into nature in a way that I just can't experience any other way. And so, and I think, whether it's a river, an inland lake, I grew up in Pittsburgh, the nautical center of the universe, and for me, the perfect sailing was this old strip mine that had been turned into a lake, and racing on that was as much about playing the shore as it was interacting with water. And so for me, it's where I lose myself, and find a little bit of nature.
Nathaniel Philbrick, you are always welcome here. The book is called Second Wind. I will devour it this weekend. Thanks for coming in. Good luck with the book.
Hey, great to talk to you again.
You got it. Nathaniel Philbrick, and if you ever get a chance, Nantucket Island is a great place